Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Jeremy B. Hill Show. All right, my friends, another episode. Excited to share a leader in the industry. So I have known of Brett Hickey and Star Mountain for a long, long time. So today on the show, we got Brett Hickey, CEO of Star Mountain, one of the leading alternative managers and investors in small business America across the country. He developed a fantastic reputation. Brett, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Jeremy. Pleasure being here with you.
I'm excited. So, when I look at the kind of persona behind you and all this great things it is that I see of Star Mountain, you guys have built a world-class organization and are continuing to do so. I continue to see you show up on social at industry events. I've seen you and been on panels with you. We've looked at deals together as an organization over years and years. The things that I didn't know is like former roughneck. So he's not just one of those, fancy suits in New York, right? He's got his hands dirty. A speed skating champion, a gold medalist, a triathlete, an Ironman, a member of Forbes Council, and a member of the CEO organization, a husband and a father. Candidly, you sound like you got the world by the tail, my man.
Well, it doesn't always feel that way, as I'm sure you and many can attest to. But we worked hard and thankfully had some challenges and fortune, and luckily that's played out in our favor over the years. Some people say, wow, this seems to have come together quickly. And I remind them that I started my business 20 years ago. So if 2 decades is quick, then I guess so. But no, I feel very fortunate, both personally and professionally, and a lot of things that were a vision, back 2 decades ago have now really come through to reality. And that's exciting.
It is. It's that overnight success, 20 years in the making, right?
That's right.
You didn't see me when I was crying in the closet, right? Oh my God, what's going on? So it's a different story. So,
yep. Many sleepless nights, which my wife can attest to.
Yeah, my wife is the same thing. We should start like some kind of support group for our wives or something. They're probably one that exists. I'm sure that,
not a bad idea.
They're ready, right? So, in New York now, but live in Connecticut. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. We moved up after our second child was born. We decided to have our third up in Greenwich, Connecticut, and wanted to play hockey with the kids and be in the outdoors a little more with them, but still be, accessible into New York. And also, sure. Greenwich has a great financial ecosystem into itself, which is pretty productive for us.
I've got lots of fond memories of Greenwich. It's one of my favorite places. Just a beautiful, beautiful, cool city, rich heritage. I like it real well. So, but you're not New York by trade. So a lot of people it is, and you run in, probably a little bit more elevated circles than I do, but a lot of the folks it is that I know in finance in San Francisco and Chicago and New York and London, a lot of these guys are, maybe a second gen or a third gen kind of finance, New York, Harvard, Ivy, typical type stuff. And we've all seen them, and they've got the Patagonia vest to prove it. God bless them. Right. Your story is a little bit different though, right? Like what I hear is kind of growing up kind of small town Canada kind of boy. Is that right? Tell me a little bit. So did you grow up in a finance or an entrepreneurship family, or tell me a little bit about
sure.
The origin story of you?
Given they have an NHL team, many people know of Edmonton. So I was actually born in Edmonton. My parents were both school teachers, and the way to elevate your career as a school teacher is you go to a harder environment to live in, which unfortunately for us, that meant northwest of Edmonton, where I grew up in a small town of 10,000 people in northern British Columbia, where my parents at a young age were able to get better jobs as school teachers. My father is principal of a middle school, and my mother teaching entrepreneurship. So I guess kind of grew up around entrepreneurship that way through my late mother. She unfortunately got diagnosed with cancer when I was 4 and passed when I was 6. And so we ended up staying there and never leaving. And my father quit being a principal and then just taught mostly mathematics and chemistry. So I guess I kind of grew up around finance in a sense, and school teacher math, and kind of a little bit around entrepreneurship, but in a very different way. And in all seriousness, had no knowledge at all of Wall Street, finance, or anything like that. but had a lot of background in community and in working together. And I think that's partially when you live in a small town, a lot of people work together as a community,
Sure.
whether it's, hey, you have an elderly person and you want to shovel their roof for them because they can't do it so the roof doesn't collapse in the winter, and
So
borrowing somebody
let's
else's
chime in real
snowblower.
quick. You can tell he's from Canada because in the United States we shovel driveways. In Canada they shovel roofs.
That's
Right?
right.
A little bit different, right? That's fun.
So you do things like that. You borrow a snowblower from somebody. You help each other out as a community. So that, to me, I grew up where community and working together was normal. That's just what people did. You didn't have to have strategic meetings about it. You helped, you worked together, and so forth. And also, grew up in an environment where hard work was generally the name of the game. A lot of it was a more of a blue collar type of environment, and whether it's farming or what I did after graduating high school, going to work on the oil drilling rigs for a year in what people call the oil sands in northern Alberta, northern Saskatchewan. It's tough work, but that's how you could make better money, as you go do the harder labor type of jobs. And so that was the environment that I grew up in, which today, as I look back and think about my children, has formed a lot of things that I have. And now the tough thing is, how do I instill the grit and other things in my children that I think that I inherently learned growing up in that type of environment. And the community aspect was also very fortunate because when your parents are teachers, I think, and I'm sure many other public service type of industries like that, a lot of the other teachers felt bad for my father, felt bad for me that way, and wanted to be helpful. And so I'm, of course, very thankful for all the other teachers. And you're spending time in the gyms on the weekend and whatnot because, your dad's working. But it's not like spending time in the gym is a bad place to be. It's enjoyable. You're playing basketball with other teachers' kids and things like that, or whatever, floor hockey, some type of sports. And so I grew up doing a lot of sports. I grew up with a lot of different people. And probably benefited from learning from them and so forth. And I was also in the category of luck. Grew up taking French immersion, and why I say that was lucky was that not a lot of people in Western Canada wanted their kids in French immersion, so we had very small class sizes. I've now learned that you got to pay a lot for that, and there's a lot of value to these small class sizes. And we also had really, yeah, I mean, just very, at least from my perspective,
Sure.
lucky. And also I was fortunate to have teachers around the world, teachers from Quebec, teachers from France and stuff that wanted to experience West Coast and living in Canada. And so they really were some interesting, dynamic, thoughtful speakers, or pardon me, teachers that I was exposed to. And I think that was very lucky and something I feel very fortunate to have had exposure to.
Wow, good for you. It sounds like you had a great growing up. A few challenges there. The dynamic of losing mom early is shaping, right?
Yeah, and let's be clear, it's very cold where I grew up, and you work on the oil rigs is not easy. So there were definitely some things that I hope that my children will not be repeating. But there are definitely a lot of blessings that I think I've found, and perhaps that's the mindset of a lot of friends of mine that are entrepreneurs. You talk to them, wow, that was tough, and yet their focus is, yes, but here's how I was fortunate. Here's how I made lemonade out of lemons. And I think while I had a lot of different challenges I faced, I think there were also a lot of things I was very fortunate to have had exposure to.
Yeah, you don't, when you're in the middle of it, you don't always see the challenge as a blessing, right? It's after the fact, either the lessons or the fortitude or the resolve become the takeaway from that kind of shape you and make you stronger as a person when you're going on, right? And if not for that time in the world, time in the oil sands, or time here, or the experiences growing up, or otherwise, that's kind of how it is that it shapes you for how you think and make decisions and all that kind of thing going forward. And so, was the intent in going to the oil sands, was that like a step to pay for college? Was that a step to, hey, maybe I want to do this? Or what was the thought in moving that way?
Yeah, it was college. I knew I didn't want to work on the oil rigs for my whole life. In general, it's tough work, and I commend the people that work hard. It's cold, it's dangerous, it's challenging environment, especially if you're in the faster moving oil rigs where you're setting them up and drilling and setting the other ones up really quickly. When you have big machines and things are bent and, muddy and frozen and jammed, and, that's where just a lot of things break, a lot of accidents with very heavy, strong machinery. And of course, that's where you have a lot of injuries that come from that.
I've seen
But
Landman. I've seen Landman. I know that
that's right.
but it's the same thing. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. But as a result of that danger, they'll pay you well.
Yeah.
So as a young guy, I said, look, if I can put my head down and work hard for a year on that, I should be able to make generally enough money. Thankfully, college in Canada is a lot cheaper generally. And so that generally helped make enough money to help finance most of my education.
Good for you. And so went from there, you went to uni in Canada, correct? And then study business, study finance. Was that?
Yeah, in Canada, there's some U.S. schools that have this, but Canada has a lot of just pure business classes and programs in college you can take, so you don't have to take arts. So I studied entrepreneurship initially in Calgary, and then I was speed skating on the national training team before flipping my bicycle on the velodrome and getting injured, unfortunately, in the late 90s, 2000. And then I transferred over to McGill University in Montreal to finish a finance and accounting degree before moving to the U.S.
Good for you. And so was the plan always New York, or was the plan always finance and to come to the States?
No, in fact, initially I was more thinking, because of my love of sports, I was more thinking medicine. So studying, and I like a lot of the biology, the kind of mechanics of the body is sort of neat stuff to study. And so I liked sports, and I figured out that was a good way to do it. As I got into school, and I'm thinking about how many years you have to commit to school before you can start practicing is, of course, a long time. And then I also was thankful to get exposed to a finance company that an extended family of member of mine owned, and let me do internships and things like that and learn and work within a wealth management firm in the late 90s. And I started to learn about finance. I'm like, hey, this stuff's pretty neat and fun and interesting. And then that's heading into the 2001 days where everybody's excited and, money's sort of falling off the trees type of thing. As a lot learned, it's the trees themselves that actually fell and not the money off the trees. But ultimately, it was a pretty fun and exciting time. And I'm like, wow, like, how do I grow my career? And what I like to refer to as the simple math seemed that getting to New York City was a pretty critical thing to do. And that's where I then sort of charted my course and said, well, how do I get here? What do I need to do that? And it seemed that McGill University had one of the best recruiting launch pads at the time. And again, this is over 20 years ago, still today is strong, but that helped get people into Wall Street jobs, where the big bulge bracket investment banks would recruit on campus at McGill University. And that's ultimately what helped get me here to initially Solomons with Barney Citigroup.
Yeah, so it worked.
Yeah, that's right.
It worked. That's good. All roads in finance, all roads lead to New York. So
yeah, sometimes I naively, it was funny. I remember going to McGill University. I said, what do I need to do to get in? And they're like, well, you're from a little town with your local public schools I've never heard of. You went to a little community college. We're just going to care about your math. I said, okay, good. What do I need to do? Like, okay, well, here's what you need to do. I said, great. I'll see you in a couple of years. Kind of came back and just executed against the plan. And thankfully it worked out, and thankfully McGill did what they said they would do. If I got X, I'd get in. And I even remember saying, well, if I take a summer class here, a couple summer classes before being admitted, and I get A's in them, it'll be really hard for them not to transfer me in. So I kind of took some risks in my focus there, but ultimately the risks all paid off and worked out, and was fortunate enough to get into McGill and then get recruited out of there.
Good for you. And then so out of McGill, you ended up at Citi, or Solomon Smith Barney before it became Citi. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then so how was that? So now from small town to studies to you're in the center of the world with it at the time, one of the I guess probably most prolific and historied people on Wall Street for a long, long time. And so out of the frying pan and into the fire. Here you go,
Yeah.
kid. Lace up your shoes and let's go. How was that? How was that experience finally being in the city? And
I remember during interviews, they asked me whether this is going to be really hard work. And, it's different than today's day and age. Not that people don't work hard today. Of course, people do. But back then they were very explicit about it. And there was no sugarcoating it. And I said, well, speed skiing the national team and kind of working weekends, taking more than a full course load, and worked on the oil rigs, working 80 to 100 hours a week, depending on it, in pretty rough conditions. And they're like, okay, I think you can probably handle the effort aspect of it. And they put me to the test as far as the workload and so forth, especially in the financial institutions investment banking group, which I really loved being in. Just a tremendous amount of data, learning, and information. But at the time, it was really neat, going from a town of 10,000 people in northwestern Canada to working in New York City. And at the time, Citigroup was the largest financial services firm in the world. So that was really neat. And within Citigroup has its insurance companies and had the biggest wealth management business in North America, big investment banking division and so forth, commercial banking, so all these different things under the Citigroup umbrella. And then our team was involved in so many things of that because we were doing the financial institutions investment banking for assets that Citigroup owned, like spinning out the property casualty division. I was, of course, just a fly on the wall and guy cranking models as an analyst, but as a fly on the wall, you learn a lot. And so I was fortunate to get exposure to many, just tremendous people and leaders of banks, leaders of asset management firms, leaders of insurance companies, and understanding what are they doing, why are they doing it, where have they had challenges, where are they trying to go, and especially learning where people have had challenges, because what I call the front page of the Wall Street Journal is generally all the amazing things and everybody doing great, and that's what everybody likes to talk about. But you learn more in life, and I'm sure you and all of your audience here, Jeremy, can attest that unfortunately, we often learn more from our challenges in life than our successes. And so I found it really interesting to learn why different asset management and investment firms failed, whether they were strategies that were just not great, whether it was structures of their vehicles or funds that had asset liability mismatches or too much concentration or something like that, or management challenges, people not getting along, partners fighting, and things of that nature were generally the three core buckets. And so when I launched my firm 20 years ago under a different brand name at the time in 2004 with one of my partners, Dave DePaulo, as an investor and helping advise part-time with us, that was really core to saying, well, how do we kind of do this right? And, I unfortunately still learned things the hard way. And when we launched Star Mountain as a trademark brand in 2010, I've really tried to surround myself with a lot of people that have been there and done that and learned things the easy way and the hard way, so that we can try to learn from other people as much as possible and learn less from our own challenges and mistakes.
Yeah. So it almost seems like it is that unconsciously, like the world was working for you, right? Not only getting into New York and getting into city, but they've then even within city, like you said, at the time, the largest financial services group in the world at the time, but then even working within city in specialty finance, learning how other operators are operating, kind of almost the world was conspiring for you to set you up to get you in a point it is to start your own deal or to start Star Mountain and kind of where it is that you are now. And I love the idea and the philosophy of the world is working, the world is working for you, not against you, kind of a thing, right? You may just not realize it yet.
Yeah. I think we all in life, obviously some harder than others for everybody, different points in life. It's tough, and I'm sure everybody's been through that. And I think, look, for all of us, we just have to try to make the best we can out of every situation we're dealt with. And then hopefully you get some situations you can capitalize on, some things you have to grind through and you want to mitigate the challenges of and work your way through it. But that's kind of how I view life and a business. The plan all looks like a hockey stick, of course, in our Excel models, but the reality is it's,
Nothing
it's
ever
an
goes wrong in projections.
Exactly. But it's an S-shaped curve that you just want to be up and to the right so that you can manage and capitalize on the opportunities, mitigate the challenges, capitalize on the opportunities, mitigate the challenges. And, keep that trend going has been the way that I've thought through life. And I think one of the things that helped me being a young entrepreneur, there are a lot of things I wish I would have done differently and lots of things I've learned. But ultimately, at least I think I have learned, and you do learn. And a lot of things, you have to roll up your sleeves and get after it in order to learn and in order to grow. And, I feel very fortunate where we're at today, because there's a lot of things I think I've learned along the journey in, things from Citigroup, things from my own experiences. And now, as I say, I focus a lot on learning from other people as much as possible.
Yeah. So when did the decision come that you were going to leave Citi and start your own deal? And so you said you and one of your partners started and kind of evolved over a few years before it actually became Star Mountain. But what was that kind of, late night, Friday night of, hey, dude, let's go do something different? Or how did that come to be?
It started in 2003, identifying a business opportunity where it seemed that the aging demographics and the lower middle market, or as you referred to earlier, Jeremy, small, medium-sized businesses, not the startups, not the venture capital world, but the rest of the world, which makes up, I'll call it Main Street, is actually the vast majority of where all Americans work, and is where roughly 50% of all US GDP resides. So it's a huge market segment. It's just, a bunch of couple 100,000 smaller businesses. And so that seemed like a much less competitive market that had some positive tailwinds to it. And I felt that we could bring resources and relationships and skills to it that would allow us to generate ultimately better returns, and in a less correlated manner for investors. When you think about, as an investor, you want to develop products and strategies that can actually bring value to people, and protecting capital, providing cash yield, providing long-term capital gains returns, and just higher overall returns. And generally, what I saw is that you do that where you have competitive advantages. To have competitive advantages, you generally need to have barriers to entry and challenges. And one of the challenges of this end of the market, which you of course acutely know, Jeremy, is it's very labor intensive. It's very fragmented, and that creates a lot of challenges, and therefore challenges create opportunities. And I had a pretty long runway. I was 25 when I launched my first fund, which is 21 years ago now. And, so I've really had a multi-decade vision to where we wanted to get to. And that always made me excited. And I think in Wall Street, some of the things I would see from people are chasing a quick dollar here or there. I've just never seen that work out on average for people. Whereas, good business plans, everybody really focusing and working hard together for a long period of time, I have seen that work out well for a lot of people. And so I guess that was the learnings that informed my vision to not only the market opportunity, but how to try to build what we have today at Star Mountain Capital.
Yeah. So I'm of the same mind, right? So we started JB, my platform, in 2003, about the same time. And so I definitely don't want to compare myself to you, because that'll be a giant ego blow for the day. And I'm pretty good about myself right now, so we're not going to go down that path. But,
I see lots that I don't want to compare myself to every day as well. So thankfully, I think as we learn in life that we don't need to, right?
For sure. But we've been in a similar ethos, right? So ours started from an investment banking standpoint, and then ultimately went into funds. And candidly, I wish I would have been in the fund business longer. But that same idea that you're talking about is there is this dramatically underserved world of these guys that are past the friends and family, mom and dad, rich uncle round of raising capital. They're not a startup. It's not a venture backed deal. And they don't need to borrow 50 or 80 or $100 million. They need to borrow 5 or 10 or 15. And that's that kind of weird check that candidly Wall Street does a shitty job of serving. And so you guys have built such an extraordinary organization and such a great reputation. It is serving that market. I've got to think it is, and I've been doing this almost 25 years, is that you're one of the first people that come to mind in everybody's conversation for who's kind of leading that path. And so I applaud what it is that you built. I think it's great.
Thank you. Yeah. It's interesting, Jeremy. A lot of people I think, and I didn't when I first launched my fund in 2004. I wasn't thinking of branding and so forth. When we launched Star Mountain Capital as a brand in 2010, was post to the whole design, branding, and trademarking a brand, building a logo around a brand everybody can generally spell, pronounce, so on and so forth.
Right.
All the different aspects in building that reputation. And if you look at many of the leading businesses in the world, the importance of that brand and how do you build that? Because most of us in finance aren't brand builders. And so I've tried to really learn and build that. And that's what we wanted to be. And we really aspire to be when somebody says, hey, I'm looking for capital to buy out a partner, to make an acquisition or something of that nature. We want people to say, well, have you spoken to Star Mountain? And what we try to be is not only where we have the capital we can support, but we've also trademarked the words collaborative ecosystem.
Hmm.
And we try to be a point of influence so that if people come to us, instead of just saying we can't help, at least try to have one or two other options of people to introduce them to say, hey, this doesn't fit us, but it might fit our friend's fund. And how can we all work together at this end of the market to assist each other, assist the businesses, work collaboratively with other banks. We work with many US banks, and how we can all work together to try to serve everybody's collective stakeholders. So I appreciate you saying that, because we put a tremendous amount of time and effort into that. And as you know, great investing starts with great origination. So that you can have the best investment opportunities to be as selective as possible on. And that's where we put a lot of time into that. And everybody sits back and says, well, yeah, I want to be really selective. Well, how do you go out and drive that deal flow? How do you build that brand? How do you build that reputation? And we, far from perfect, but we certainly put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah. For those in the audience that are listening that are in finance, or you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, you're growing your business and you're looking for capital, what you just said is more unique, I think, than people give credit to. Like you and I talked about before it is that we were starting the show here, is that there's very few people in this business in a white cowboy hat, right? Like majority of people it is that we know in this business are in it to make money, and God bless them. We're all capitalists and want to do so, but you can also make money and not be an asshole. Like not every deal is going to fit me. Not every deal is going to fit Star Mountain, but that doesn't mean it is. If you and I've been doing this for 25 years, that I shouldn't try to help Joe. It's not for me, but let me introduce you to Brett, or let me make sure you got the right banker, or there's a different structure you should maybe consider here. Let me just kind of, coach you up and put, 25 years of wisdom into 10 minutes in a conversation to maybe see if I can help you get a little bit further ahead, if for nothing else, but just goodwill. And so few people take that attitude. And I think, again, that's probably another of the 100 reasons why it is that you're successful. So few people do that. So that idea of that kind of collaborative ecosystem is again, just wonderful.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. One of the things is I've been trying to grow, my own platform and trying to learn, like you said, that you're looking at these other people and what can I garner from them? What can I learn from them? One of the things I've done a shitty job of, that I see that you've done an extraordinary job of, is you brought some extraordinary talent amongst your team. So now you're an organization of 100-ish, 100 or more?
Yeah, we're just over, I think we're 105 full-time people now, and 40 operating partners and senior advisors.
That's amazing. So but that's, 20 years in the making. When you were early on,
brick by brick.
Yeah, brick by brick. And so how are you doing that, and how are you attracting talent when you don't have a big platform to support it, or you can't pay a Wall Street salary to somebody it is who, let me just tell you how great Star Mountain's going to be when you're not quite there yet. How are you attracting these talent and bringing these people in to, that buy into you, that help you grow? Because, Brett's amazing, but the reason why Star Mountain is there is Brett plus your 100, and that there's more guys in the boat and more guys singing the song. How do you work with finding talent like that as you're growing?
It was hard at the beginning, for sure. Today, what's exciting, and you and I talked about this a little bit, but the Star Mountain of today is dramatically better than even it was 12 months ago.
Nice.
And the team that I'm fortunate to have with me and aligned and partner with me, I feel very fortunate to have. And talent attracts talent, success attracts
Yeah.
success ultimately. And so we're starting to have some different, virtuous cycle benefits to that.
Mhm.
And thankfully, we've done very well investing and driving results. And I think that's what it starts with, in my opinion, at least, attracting really talented people. You need to have good things to say. You need to have
Mhm.
good investment strategies that really make a difference. You need to have investments in your firm and organization that they see will create distinctive advantages in origination, underwriting, and portfolio management to attract them, because at Star Mountain, all of our senior team, they have personal capital invested. They're aligned and are, shareholders in the firm, sharing the carried interest. And so everybody is making a bet on themselves, on each other as a team, and on strategies that make sense. So I've always viewed a data-driven approach to investing. And I think that's one of the benefits, as I have benefited from learning from content, as I'm sure many have, from Ray Dalio and others that are very giving in the amount of information that they share out there with principles. When I moved to the US, I was very naive. There were a lot of things I didn't know. I didn't know much about anything in the investment world, right? I could do finance and studying and models and stuff like that, but that's, as you know, very different from real hands-on investing and acumen. So that, of course, takes time to build over time as an apprenticeship style of learning. People often refer to it as. And so we've built up a way of really saying, well, what makes sense and why? Because I didn't start this business saying, well, I grew up in XYZ industry, or I grew up doing ABC, or my father did, XYZ, and therefore that's what we're going to do.
Sure.
I said, well, what makes sense and why? And that's really the philosophy we continue to reevaluate everything with its Sermon. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? What are our distinctive advantages? And when I joined the Young Presidents Organization back, I guess, 16 years ago now, roughly, it's similar with business owners. Or when I did the program at Harvard Business School called the Owner President Manager Program, starting in 2009, you live on campus with 150 CEOs from around the world approximately for about 3 weeks. And in the very first module, so to get in, it's more of a YPO qualification where you need to be an owner of a business, you need to be a certain size, you need to have an active management role in it. I'll kind of sum it up as. And so therefore they're saying, well, whatever business you're in, that might have been a great business 30 years ago, but maybe it's not anymore. And so you really need to think about what are your distinctive advantages that you have, and what are your competitive advantages. And it's interesting because there's a lot of businesses that don't really have that distinctive of advantages. And when I thought about my own business, I said, I think we're good at what we do, but it's not really distinctive where we can say that is a real difference. And then we took a step back and said, well, where are the biggest challenges? Where are the biggest needs? How can we help investors more and what they're looking for in capital protection, yield, returns, less correlated returns to the markets? Because, as you know, the public markets continue to shrink. Today, there are roughly half the number of publicly traded companies in the US relative to what there was 20 years ago. And, roughly 90% of all established businesses in America are private. So investors think about, well, how do I create a more resilient, diversified, alpha generating portfolio? You're looking for those strategies. And so we really took a step back and whiteboarded things. And we do that every year, actually, and refresh what we're doing. And the world changes, right? When Silicon Valley Bank, went under and changed hands and so forth, and First Republic and others, a lot of things changed. So in the bank market in the US, deposits didn't leave, but they changed from smaller banks up to bigger banks. And all of a sudden, the large market became much more competitive and efficient and well capitalized. And the smaller end of the market became less capitalized, less efficient. And there was already a trend that way where the smaller banks invest more in local real estate than they do in, C&I, in operating companies. And so as the world is always changing around us, like you and I talked about earlier here, Jeremy, technology today, We have 10 engineers that work for us and our whole business development team around the tech and systems. Like, it's awesome what we're finally building. It takes a lot more time and money, unfortunately, than
Sure.
we would generally always hope. But it's incredible what modern technology can do today, and how we can try to add value to the businesses we invest in, and ultimately then up into our investors and to our team. So as we attract talent today, Jeremy, I think it's really about working with great people, great attitudes, alignment of interest, being very clear on where the business is going. So we're not here to say that you have to agree with us, but we're here to be clear. And here's our culture. Here's our star values: shareholder, trust, accountability, respect. And we live by our values.
Love that.
And if that resonates with you, then that's great. If there's a different type of culture or environment that you might be more successful in, that's great as well. But we really try to make sure we have a one firm, unified approach and culture. And I think that helps with also a bit of a self-selection bias, Jeremy, because there's a lot of people that have worked at big firms and said, well, I don't want to just be a number. I want to matter. I want to be able to have an impact, make a difference. And I think we actually have a little bit of a self-selection bias to people that have been successful and also believe in themselves that way, that therefore want to be in an organization where they can really make an impact.
Yeah, that you're very thoughtful, and it sounds like it is that you've been very thoughtful on ultimately what it is that you wanted to create around that, around Star Mountain as a whole, even before it was called Star Mountain, and starting to see some of that stuff manifest. And one of the big things it is that I think your people and your investors will appreciate is you are a professional investor who is investing into his business to make it better for his investors. Like you said, I mean, what financial services firm it is that's growing and trying, continuing to market and raise funds and attract people and trying to do new deals is pausing and saying, hey, let's go put multiple millions of dollars and 10 full-time engineers into technology and engineering that makes the rest of our business go. That is, I have no doubts, is going to set up the next, dozen to 15 years it is for success for Star Mountain. That's a great story to tell.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, man.
No, it is exciting though. It's
Yeah,
pretty awesome. I'm very thankful and delighted for our tech team. I remember people asked, like, when we hired our chief technology officer, John Polis, who's been an incredible partner to us, and we started having conversations roughly 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Most people would say, well, let's spend money on fundraisers, spend money on other things. It's, well, if we're going to have an awesome investment business, we have to invest in these things early. Sure. So that we create that culture and that ethos of systems, technology, process, procedures, and just how we approach everything. And he's really been a great partner to us. And now with our scale that we have today, overlaid with what I'll call modern technology, it's pretty awesome how that platform that we built, we can now accelerate some really interesting tools off of, and how we measure risk, evaluate risk, look to drive more value to companies, help them grow more systematically. So it's actually a lot of fun.
Love that. So, we like to say a lot of times there's guys like you and me, right now in the headlines, private credit is everywhere, right? And so I think that we're going to be in this probably, similar to what it is that we've seen in private equity over the last 25 or 30 years. I think private credit is now probably in the first year or two of this kind of 25 or 30 year bull run in private credit. And so guys like you have been doing private credit since before private credit was cool, which is great.
I've been telling my wife it's cool for a long time. She's starting to listen.
They're just finally catching up. I know Christine's the same way. No, I'm really cool. Trust me. How is, where, everybody I think has a different idea of what they call lower middle market or kind of SME. And so where are you fitting in the market? Because we all know banks are kind of going the way of the dinosaur to a certain degree, and we continue to see consolidation there. But we also see at the cover of every headline is BlackRock and Blackstone and Vanguard and State Street and that kind of thing. But there's a whole world in between. And so where do you fit and where do you serve and where are you growing and who are the companies it is that kind of should be looking to Star Mountain as resources when they're growing?
Yeah, I think that alpha, in how we try to create alpha in a systematic way, is the inefficiency and the labor intensity around things. So it's finding high quality businesses, it's designing business plans with them. So, for example, in today's aging demographic, you get many people that say, hey, I'm in my late 50s or early 60s. I don't need to sell yet, but when I do, I want to do it at maximum value. How do we do that? And so we'll sit down and work with them and say, well, what are your goals? Do you have children in the business at all? Do you have what are your objectives here? And then overlay that with the business opportunity, create a unified business plan, and then create a customized capital structure and operational framework to help execute against that. Often that means let's do a couple acquisitions because there's other people that do the exact same thing you do that are just 20 miles away, that builds a bigger business, a more diversified customer base. Then let's professionalize your board of directors, which is where, our collaborative ecosystem and all the relationships we have is very helpful in trying to help find high quality board members for you that can really drive value, not just be people on a paper, but that can really drive value to your business, just like a lot of the senior advisors and operating partners that we have at Star Mountain that drive real value to Star Mountain. And so we authentically say, here's how we've designed it, here's how we've built it from a business owner to business owner conversation, and here's how we can help you do that. So you further professionalize it. We have a program calling Getting Middle Market Ready. So as they look to graduate into a just bigger, more professionalized business that ultimately will be, desires to be acquired by many people. And as you know, there's more private equity capital raised today and uninvested by more private equity firms than ever in history. So if you can take a few smaller businesses and school bus transportation or pet hotel boarding and grooming or preschool chains or HVAC, plumbing, all these services across
The
America.
boring businesses, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
all the basic boring stuff,
basic
right? But
boring
it's,
businesses. Yeah.
tends to be very recession resilient, pretty uncorrelated to public markets, may have less correlation to potential tariffs as we sit in the new era of question marks and risk and reward. You take a lot of these businesses, and if you can grow them the right way and safely and do acquisitions the right way, build your executive team the right way, and so forth. You have some really high quality businesses that add real value to all their employees, add real value to all stakeholders. Now, none of that is what I would call rocket science. It requires specialization and skills, but it requires a lot of resources, a lot of capabilities, and a lot of focus. And one thing that I've never been afraid of in life is to work hard. But we're not here to say, oh, we can just outsmart the market. We can pick stocks. We know when a market's going to drop. We think a recession has a bigger tail risk than most do today, but it's not our job to have to bet on that. But we do invest as a result of that more defensively. And that's what I've found in life, and kind of gets into earlier when we were talking, is if you create a good business plan and it's well thought out and makes sense, then it's a matter of just doing a great job of executing. And that's how we like to run our firm at Star Mountain. And that's how we like to invest with these businesses. And because you just don't have the big consultants, the big investment banks, the big asset managers focusing down here because it's too labor intensive. There's not enough fees for the big investment banks or the consulting firms and so forth to spend time with these companies. But there's some really great businesses and great people. And it's fun. Candidly, it's nice to feel that, we can not only create, great financial returns for investors, but actually add value to the businesses and all their employees and people and help make better businesses and, help make an impact. And that's been also one of the threads of Star Mountain, is that purpose and mission driven aspect. We are for profit, but thankfully there is an alignment in not losing money for investors, not having to bankrupt companies, not over leveraging companies, actively working with companies. If you think about all those things, they're actually very well aligned with protecting capital, driving better returns, helping build better jobs and communities, and really working with a lot of these businesses that, have many people that have spent their lives in these companies.
Yeah.
and have, enormous amount of their wealth tied up into it and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. It's not just like a stock. It's not just a trade. It's not well, if this doesn't go well, no big deal. It's a very big
Oh, they
deal.
got 30 years of
We
their
take
life
that
into
very
it. Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah. Right. They've got 30 years of their life into the business. It's,
Exactly.
these entrepreneurs often it's, the things that keep them up at night are their wife and their kids and their business. And more
And,
often than
and
not,
our investors love hearing that,
yeah.
today, of course, with NVIDIA and the incredible success it's had, the spotlight on the founder and the drive and the passion, the intensity that builds great businesses. And, whether it's NVIDIA or Apple or pick a name, you have that. Well, that's what we often have, as backing these business owners is the drive, the passion, the intensity, the focus that they all have, which is similar to us and similar to myself and my partners and my team at Star Mountain all being aligned in how we're really driven. And I think that drive and focus, really help create better outcomes. And we've been in an economic environment where everything is sort of up and to the right. But my guess is when challenges come, you're going to see those companies that have passion, focus, drive, risk management, and then you'll see ones that perhaps don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that comes back to it's Angela Duckworth and grit, right?
Yeah.
Just that underlying kind of grit and resolve it is for the founder and the entrepreneur. It is that's stays up late and gets up early and it's just a part of them. You can't turn it off, right? You see those guys. Um, First, you got a wonderful story, and I'm excited by the conversation and just everything it is that I've seen from the outside looking in at Star Mountain. The inside story is even better, which is just wonderful. So going forward over this next kind of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, what does the future of Star Mountain look like here over the next few years? What are you guys doing? What are you excited about? What can we make sure it is that the audience really hears about where the future of your business is going?
Thanks for asking, Jeremy. We really want to drive as much value as possible for people. Our mission and our vision is really highly focused on driving value and protecting value for our investors and driving value and protecting value in an aligned way with the businesses that we're investing in and therefore our team. So that's what, our primary stakeholders are: the businesses we're investing in, our team and our investors. And, we try to work in a very focused, aligned way. What's exciting to me is what we have today as a firm at Star Mountain is just so much stronger and better on every measurable front than we've ever had before. I even think we're probably dramatically better than we were 12 months ago, not just a little bit. Our team, our processes, our systems, our technology, and then overlaid with this aging demographic, we're here to help business owners. If you have a business owner that says, I'm interested in selling, we might find a great business owner to partner with, help acquire you and grow. And maybe you transition from CEO to chairman and you diversify some of your capital, but you retain some of your ownership in the business to help take the next level and still have the fun and passion. But maybe it's not 70 hours a week. Now you're doing it 25 hours a week or something like that. Because most people, and even in longevity actually studies, people don't want to go from full throttle to nothing.
Right.
If you look at guys like Buffett eating See's candies or drinking Coca-Cola or McDonald's or something, it's maybe there's a bit of an anomaly, but I think part of it is that the drive and the focus that he has and the purpose and passion that observing right from a distance that he seems to have, I think that's a big part of it. And they talk about that in longevity. So for a lot of people, they want to be very focused. They want to be involved. And at Star Mountain, we're here to sit down and listen, learn, see if we can be helpful, see if we can come up with a plan with you to where we can be helpful, whether that's structuring some acquisitions to help you grow, building your team. Maybe people want to sell in 2 years, sell in 1 year, sell in 10 years. Yeah. How can we design ways to work with you and grow and help create capital solutions and bring, what we call large market resources to these businesses? So, if you're a business owner in America and you have between 3 million and 50 million of EBITDA, and you're looking to figure out what to do with your business, we'd love to see if we can be helpful to you in some way. And then for investors that are looking for ways to access, a less correlated Main Street end of the economy, and are looking for ways to get involved and look to create the opportunities here, we'd be delighted to speak with you. And I'm excited as we've grown our team there, where we're now able to have different products to take this market opportunity that's inherent and then look to create structures that are better for individual investors, taxable investors, how to try to optimize the after-tax returns, how to optimize risk-based capital for insurance companies, for different public pension and other type of investors we have there. And I think that as we grow in this asset class, we're now able to bring better solutions to investors as well to try to optimize ultimately different desires that different people have. And so, that's exciting that we now have a size of a team and a capability to offer these things and just have a much better business in what we do in Star Mountain, overlaid with a generational opportunity, right? The aging demographic we have in America, where there are estimated to be over 65 million Americans now over the age of 65.
Wow.
It is a huge opportunity that nobody has ever seen before, because this is the first time we have this, 1946 to 1964 baby boomer generation that's now at an age where they say, hey, I need to do something with my business. Whereas 10, 15 years ago, they might be just, hey, I'm running a great business. I don't want any other shareholders involved. I'm running it. I'm doing it. Well, now it's a different biology. It's a different era. And that's pretty exciting to us.
Yeah, without a doubt. Thanks for sharing the story, dude. I'm so excited about your story and what it is that you've done, where it is that you guys are going. You want to see the good guys win, right? Right? Like, unless you're a Patriots fan, and then no, but you want to see the good guys win, and so it's I love what it is that you're doing, and I like that you guys are making a dent, which is wonderful. So, how about a couple of fun questions? You cool with that?
Sure.
Sweet. So, outside of just general badassery of Brett, sorry. Too much coffee or not?
I've been called worse, no problem.
You and me both earlier this morning, as a matter of fact. So I see the Ironman and triathlete and that kind of thing. Like, how is this just a continuation of just like I've done a bunch of Spartan races and I really like that, but I've never done a triathlete, or triathlon, but I love that, just competing with myself. How does this come? When did you start that? How important is that just kind of personal drive there and doing hard things for you?
It's interesting. I try to think about that a lot, especially with three younger children, because time is precious and always short on every measurable aspect of life: fitness, sleep, business, children, so forth, life that way. And I try to combine things. So I do like goals a lot. And the one thing I liked about triathlons, and I've only done one full Ironman where I wanted to tackle a very difficult one in Lake Placid to do something that would be pretty intense. And my kids were younger. During COVID, I wasn't traveling, so I could wake up at 5 a.m. and train for 2 or 3 hours every morning, much more easily than I can today traveling. So that was a little bit of a silver lining that I think would be hard for me to pull off. And I don't know whether I'll ever do another one. In fact, my risk tolerance of cycling outdoors has grown pretty thin. I've had a number of friends that have been injured cycling, so I try to take it easy on that. And now more ice hockey in the winter and tennis and squash and things of that nature. But I like the connection of physical and mental. So whether I'm sitting on my indoor bike and listening to a podcast, or if I'm going for an easy run and just listening and letting my mind wander and think about things. And it's sort of like a fun journey. You say, okay, I'm going to go for a run for an hour, hour and a half, and I wonder what I'm going to think about. I wonder what different ideas I'm going to go through, a bit of a journey. And I find I come up with interesting ideas. I come up with clarity, and having that time for independent thought while endorphins are going. So not like full out, right? It's different if you're doing wind sprints and stuff like that. Like that's a tough time
You're
for
not
your
really
brain to be
thinking at that
right.
time.
You're
Yeah,
you're
right.
just grinding through it.
Yeah.
But if you're going for an easy, long exercise of something, swimming, biking, running, I find you can really get into an interesting mental journey that I haven't found a better way of doing than that. So I like the learning, and then I like the physical benefits, and it feels to me like that's just positive for everything,
Yeah.
right? Healthy mind, healthy body. Um, and then I try to exemplify with my children, and now I play sports with them a lot, which is fun because I'm getting some exercise plus playing with them. But I do miss the competitive aspects of things.
Yeah.
That was a fun thing of triathlons. You could really
Yeah.
measure what you were doing, and kind of the data-driven way that we like to invest at Star Mountain is similar to what I liked about triathlons. You could set a plan and you could execute against your plan. And generally, if you did it, you had a good plan and you executed well, you could be successful in it.
Yeah.
But I don't have, like, I do know some people that just have this thirst for adventure and they're heli skiing and doing these things. I actually have a very low risk tolerance way of living in general that way. And my wife, I was like, well, no, it's not a big deal. I've seen lots of tail risks happen in life, especially growing up in a small town, a really cool town. I've had lots of friends die in car accidents. I've seen a lot of things happen at a young age. And so that's probably formed some of my risk aversion as well. So I'm not trying to do a bunch of really intense things that way, but I always want to keep health and wellness and sports going one way or another.
Well, and that's important. I agree with you. And there's experiences that'll allow you to recognize the fragility of life, and that as you got three little kids. My wife and I have three as well, and everything you do is a trade-off and has consequences. And it might be fun to jump out of a plane, but if it works out the wrong way, I got three kids and a wife that are dependent on me and a company and people. Yeah. And so I'm with you on the trade-off. So, I heard you say podcasts. I'm a big podcast guy. I consume and really enjoy that. What are two or three go-tos that you really like, or is there anything new that you found that you're digging into?
Yeah. So some historical ones. One of the people I was very fortunate to meet at Harvard Business School was Rob Kaplan, who is back now at Goldman Sachs as the vice chairman again. And I think he's just an incredibly passionate, driven, giving person, just with an enormous amount of experience, and really brings focus and intensity to things, which I like. Rob has a number of great books and podcasts, and I've been fortunate enough to spend a bunch of time with him in person as well. So I think Rob Kaplan has a bunch of great content. And second is Ray Dalio, Principles, and how operate and so forth. I don't have a personal relationship with Ray, but the content he has, a lot of it really resonates with me, and I find interesting. I like the Harvard Business Review short hits. I find that it's nice to always have little refreshers, and even if it's something similar, life is always going through a different journey where I find that refresher of that knowledge or information helps me. Currently, a couple things that I'm focused on. Leo Tillman has a book called Agility. Leo was credited by the media in helping predict the great financial crisis of 2008. And he runs a company called Agillion. And I'll be doing an interview with him coming up, and actually did one at my annual general meeting, which was really interesting. So similar to what you're doing here, I love doing this with other thought leaders because I just learn every time I do it. And so I think Leo has some really interesting things, and what he's done with people from the military as well, and really hyper organized process procedures and how you operate, and how ultimately by being hyper organized and hyper focused, you can actually really empower people, so that when challenges come, it's not groupthink and it's not everybody chasing the soccer ball, but it's a really, very clear execution. I'll kind of summarize that at. So that really resonates with me, A, and B, just where we're at as a firm, the size of our firm, and how we're empowering people, and how I'm trying to be a better leader. And as we grow Star Mountain, what I had to do to help take us from, $1 billion to $2 or $3 billion of assets versus $4 to $10 billion of assets and size of team, we need to operate and think differently. So I'm always trying to learn around that. And similarly, Keith Ferrazzi, that has a book called Never Lead Alone, is one that I'm excited to listen to next. So that's up on my list to listen to around, really what I think of and what interested me is organized leadership, and how it's not just one person at the top, it's how we have a leadership team. And that for me resonates because at Star Mountain, it's all my partners, it's us together, it's all of us being aligned and driving hard together. And how are we a strong leadership unit versus an individual leader? And that resonates again with me, that resonates with my culture and the ownership style that we have at Star Mountain. I think financially that's in my best interest. The smarter partners that I have, the more aligned they are, the more focused they are, the better that is for me, the better that is for all of our investors at Star Mountain. And so I'm excited to dive into that. And that'll be some, the other way I consume podcasts is an infrared sauna. So I find that's easier. I do a little bit of cold plunging, but the infrared sauna is enjoyable. The cold plunge is still in the more painful category for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. Well, so one last one. Any like major life lesson or just pearls of wisdom that somebody's told you that sticks with you, that you reflect upon? Any major lesson or wisdoms it is that you reflect on?
Yeah, I'll give two. I'll give one is learning independent thought. So I had somebody that I'm really big on mentorship and learning from other people. And so constantly asking questions. And I remember this one guy said to me, a lot of basically mirroring back to me, what do you think? Well, what do you think? Right? Instead of me just bringing him my questions, my challenges, is really focused on me developing my own critical thinking. And I do a lot of that with whiteboard. I do a lot of writing notes. I do a lot of that thinking through things in Excel. I'm very visual. And one of our professors that we had, because we had students from all over the world, really also helped shape saying, look, if you can diagram something, if you can visualize it, do it. Because if not, I say something, you say something, we hear the same words, but we form perhaps very different visions of that. And so if we can visualize something, it makes it much more clear to think about, to be on the same page with people. So I find that has really helped how we do investing at Star Mountain, how we develop leadership, how we develop workflows, very, very visually trying to bring everything to life in trends and so forth of businesses, evaluating people, evaluating management teams. So that's been some pretty big things to me. On the category of something that I wish I would have learned earlier in life is just how you think about your brand, how you think about your reputation. So I did eventually learn, thankfully, and that's what led into, at least I think, with Star Mountain in 2010, so creating a trademark brand and so forth. But initially it was about investment, people, driving hard, but wasn't really a lot of thinking about, well, what is, like, whether you're purposefully building it or not, you have a brand as an individual and as a company. Now we're purposeful and intentional. Before we just had one. And so I wish I probably would have thought about that a little bit earlier in life. And I was recently talking to somebody on our team about that. He said, "Oh, I'm interested in the sports car." I was like, do you really want to do that? Is that in line with your brand? And so I was like, well, not really, and so on and so forth. And so I think those are some of the things that growing up with one parent as a school teacher, I didn't have that type of mentorship.
Sure.
And so those are some things that I wish I probably would have learned better 20 years ago instead of 15 years ago.
Yeah. Wonderful, man. Thanks for today. I had a great conversations and really enjoyed the time, buddy.
My pleasure, Jeremy.
Wonderful. All right. So for people it is that want to reach out or get in touch, what's the best way to connect with you?
So for people, Star Mountain Capital, our website has links to, our key things, including under Contact Us for careers, whether it's internship programs, full-time jobs, people that are looking for capital for businesses, people that may want to be operating partners to get involved with companies, investors interested in learning more, that's a great place. We pretty actively use, from a brand perspective, our LinkedIn. So Star Mountain Capital's page on LinkedIn. And then we also have other content that we help produce and continue to do more on our YouTube page. So those are probably the three easiest and best ways that people can engage and get content with us.
Awesome. We'll make sure we get all that in the notes. All right,
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
It's been great, my man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, you too. Happy holidays.
Thank you, buddy. You as well.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening today. This has been the Jeremy B. Hill Show. If you liked today's episode, go on and give us a 5-star review. Not 4, but 5. And even more importantly, share it with somebody else. This is Jeremy B. Hill. Your success is waiting for you, but it's not going to wait forever. Go get it.